You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey there, thanks so much for tuning into this new episode of Here Before, Here Now. Pretty cool guest for you on tap today. I am going to be speaking with Chee, and take a listen to his bio that I have right here. Okay, so Chee is a nationally renowned pianist and a composer. He played Carnegie Hall when he was just 12 years old and really has found a true way to combine his classical piano training with his Native American heritage. So let's get to the interview right now. Chee, how are you doing this morning?
Great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a word that I struggle with. Pianist. How do you say? What's the correct way to go about that one?
You know, myself, I go back and forth between the two.
Okay.
I don't know. For myself, I don't know that there's a consensus.
Okay, yeah. But there is one of debate then, though, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I hear both, I think, equally.
Okay, so Connor, tell us about yourself.
I'm originally from Page, Arizona. My dad's side of the family is from Tunnelia on the Navajo Nation. I lived here, grew up there until I was about 10, and then I moved to Cincinnati to study music. After my college studies, I came back. Right now, I'm living here in Phoenix.
So tell me about your time, growing up. You said in Page, right?
Yes.
Okay, growing up in Page, and talk about how you got influence into music.
I first started just playing by ear. My dad got a little tiny toy keyboard one year as a gift, and he doesn't play music, neither does my mom. So I just kind of was drawn to it and started making things up. I was about 5 years old, I think.
Wow.
So when they saw that I was interested, then they eventually got me piano lessons with a local teacher. I think I was about 6 years old. Eventually, they were driving me to Flagstaff because it was just hard to find music lessons out in Page.
Uh-huh.
So, it was a 2-hour drive to Flagstaff and then 2 hours back every weekend. So that's ultimately why we ended up going to Cincinnati, because my parents saw that I was really passionate about music. I wanted a future in music, and they have a performing arts school out in Cincinnati. So I auditioned and I was accepted, and I was fortunate that my parents were willing to make that sacrifice and uproot and go all the way to Cincinnati so I could study music.
Yeah, put all our eggs in this basket,
Yeah.
Right? That's awesome. So would that make you like a prodigy then, to be able to be playing piano by ear at such a young age?
I never referred to myself as a prodigy, but I just, I had a natural affinity for music.
Yeah.
And, I started being drawn to classical music. I think my mom had one of those compilation cassette tapes of best of classical piano music. And so I listened to that in the car, and I was really interested in it. And so I started trying to pick some melodies out on the keyboard, and eventually that's what I asked my teachers what I wanted to play on the piano. So that's kind of how I got started, even though I didn't listen to classical music growing up, except for that one little cassette tape. So
that's so awesome. I know when my first kid was born, as a baby, I played classical music because, they say classical music will make them, smarter or something and become a genius. I mean, he's a smart kid, so I don't know if it was the classical music that I played. Second kid, gosh, not so much. I haven't done that yet. But what is it about classical music that really drew you to become the pianist that you are today?
It's hard to say because, growing up, I had an appreciation for, obviously traditional music. I think that was some of the earliest music I listened to, traditional Navajo music, because my grandfather would sing that. And now, as a composer, I'm really kind of combining both of those things, where I had this training in classical piano, but after all of that education, what I did was come home and sort of find a way to come back to my roots and combine those types of music in a different way. Mm-hmm. So, I was drawn to the instrument, I think. Piano, I feel like, is a instrument that's very accessible for young children because you can just start making music immediately. You can start getting, tones out of it. Unlike some other instruments where you have to have the right technique, or
right.
It's a little bit more difficult to get started. So I think that was where I was drawn to piano. It was there for me. I had it, and I was able to just start making music on it, or noise at first, right off the bat.
I remember playing the alto saxophone and having to set the reed just right, and filling in the breath work to be able to get the right notes. So I know exactly what you mean. At first, it sounded kind of flat, or if it was too high. I can appreciate how easy it is when I mess around with my son's little play keyboard and how I can do the little chopsticks.
Mm-hmm.
That one's pretty easy to do. What's so cool about what you're doing, though, is that you're kind of blending traditional and classical music together within what you do. How do you come to do that? Is it something that just kind of comes to you, or is it just all the studying you've done?
For the longest time, I was just studying piano as a performer and not as a composer.
Okay.
And that wasn't something I did until after I finished my master's degree. I always knew that I wanted to come back home to Arizona and find some kind of a way to preserve some of the traditional music and culture that's getting lost. And so, I spent time with my grandpa, listening to some of his songs. And ultimately, what I ended up doing was just kind of taking some of these melodies and playing them on the piano. And this was sort of just a personal project for me. Eventually I recorded them. Some of them were, settings of these melodies. Some were original compositions that were just kind of based on the rhythms or the forms. And so, after I did that and released the recording, some people started getting interested in wanting to play it themselves. And I hadn't written it down, it was all just kind of in my head, which is sort of the tradition, right? It's just passed down, like you keep it in your mind. So I started writing the sheet music down for people that were interested in it. And then as I moved on to create more pieces, just being inspired by the culture, not necessarily, the exact melodies, but just my own melodies that I was creating based on creation stories or other elements of the culture. So I went from being just sort of a performance person that studied piano performance and not composition to taking this sort of alternate path where I sort of found myself doing what I'm doing now, like taking parts of the culture and blending it with the piano and now other instruments that I compose for.
Take me back to when you were 10 years old and you auditioned for this music school in Cincinnati. Obviously it went well for you because you got in, but that's so much pressure.
Yeah, it was scary. The auditioning was scary, and then also the move was like a culture shock because, growing up in Page, middle of nowhere, Arizona, and then going to school downtown Cincinnati, where it was this big school that, went all the way from 4th grade to 12th grade. And, it was a culture shock, and it took some adjusting to get used to it. But the teachers that I had there were so wonderful and passionate about teaching, and I owe everything to my parents for making that a possibility for me, and to my teachers for going the extra mile to, help me with my education and on my career in music.
What was that conversation like when it came to, I guess, asking to move to go to this school? Was it something that you brought to them, or was it something that they found this opportunity and said, would you like to pursue this?
I remember that we'd seen on television here in Arizona something that the students at that school in Cincinnati were doing. And my mom was originally from Cincinnati. So she'd floated the idea. She's like, they have a school there that just you could study music. And I saw what the kids were doing on TV, and I thought that was so cool. And so eventually, my mom looked into it, my dad looked into it, and just to see if that was a possibility,
Sure.
and then to get me an audition. And yeah, we had to have the conversation that okay, if we're going to do this, you have to really be serious. You can't be like, I don't want to practice or anything. So, I was only 10, but I did understand that this was a huge move and that I was going to have to, really take this seriously. It's not something that I was going to a year later, change my mind that I don't want to do it. I had to really decide then. But for me, getting piano lessons when I was 6, that was something I really wanted. And all of the things that they'd given me, the opportunities until then, were something that I did ask for. And so making that decision at 10 wasn't totally out of nowhere. I kind of knew what was going on, the lessons I had, the dedication I needed to have for practicing and pursuing everything.
What was the school like? I mean, from 4th grade all the way on up. And was it just like, I'm sure you learned, your reading and writing and math too, but a lot of it I'm sure was playing the instrument. Yeah,
it's a very unique school, and I was able to do a really well-rounded music education, as well as the traditional academic education. But I also studied drama while I was there, acting. And something I really loved about the program is they also, if you're a performance major like piano, or if you're anything that's happening on stage, they make you do tech theater too, so you can see all the behind the scenes and appreciate all the work that goes in, where the stage managers and the sound and the lighting, and that I have found so valuable to be able to not just appreciate, but to understand all of the other things that happen in these performances.
And you played Carnegie Hall when you were 12 after you won a world piano competition.
Yes.
Right? How did that come to be?
I'd been playing in competitions for a while, and the idea that my teachers always gave me was it's good to be in these competitions, to have a goal to prepare for, something that has a deadline and a certain standard. And so we'd entered without any idea that I would actually, place in the competition, let alone get a gold medal. So I spent the summer, practicing every single day with my teacher, and I competed, and I was just shocked that I made it to the end. And so playing at Carnegie Hall was something I was not even on the radar at that time. It was just this competition to give me something to work towards. And so when I was actually able to go to New York and play Carnegie Hall, that's I think one of the most special memories I have, because my grandpa came all the way out from here in Arizona, never been on a plane before, to come and see me play at Carnegie Hall. It was really special.
Do you go back to that memory pretty often?
I do, yeah.
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 What was that like, just getting on that stage? And
but my first time there, I mean, I was very nervous, and but there was a comfort that my family was there too, and being able to look out in the audience and instantly know that my grandpa was there, because he was there in his cowboy hat. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I could see exactly where they were, and it really gave me this sense of comfort to be able to sit down and do my performance. And I think about that a lot. There was an energy in New York City that was so special, just arriving and getting to be part of that city. And, that kind of brings me to now, where I'm playing this concerto, which originally was called the New York Concerto by Gershwin. And so I have this kind of special connection with that music as well, that memory. I think that was where I bought my first score by Gershwin, because I was in New York, and they had a Rhapsody in Blue at their sheet music store there, and I bought that. And so, looking back now, like, that's a memory I go back to for many different reasons, for my support from my family and my first time playing on a big stage like that. I carry that with me all the time.
Yeah, several years ago, I think it was maybe during the pandemic, I had seen a video of you playing on piano, and it said Yadala on it.
Yes.
Yeah. When was that filmed?
That actually was during, the pandemic.
The pandemic. Okay, yeah, because I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so cool. You had your turquoise on. It was like native infused with classical music. And I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, this guy is like, this is so neat. Tell me about that experience and what that music means to you, and what it was like to film it, and then just the response after that was out.
Yeah, it sort of all came together. It was hard because obviously it was during the pandemic, and I planned this album release and to do some music videos, but it just so happened that the filmmaker, Michael City Jr., who's a good friend of mine, was here in the Valley and was actually staying with me during the lockdowns. So it was just three or four of us that shot all these music videos during the lockdown, but it kind of worked out because we were in the middle of nowhere and we were already, staying together. But the piano was something that, my dad helped me create that piano shell and built it. And so, I play on a Yamaha piano. So I was like, we need to put something on here. That's why I put the Yadala in like the Yamaha style.
Yeah, I saw that. That was the first thing I caught when I saw that video.
Yeah, no, it was really fun, and it was a great project, and it was a good way to fill my time when, everything was shut down, to get into this project and write this music and film these music videos back in the place where my family's from, where they still live, and, where I have fond memories of as well.
And when you saw that, just like people watching it, I mean, I'm sure you were known by that time, but like this, obviously you put on the internet, it has an even wider reach, right?
Yeah, there's a whole, it was a while before I even did any music videos at all. And so that I'd done one music video before that, and it did well because people like having sort of a visual thing, especially with social media and being able to access the music, but also have something visual that they can associate with it. So I tried one music video and people seemed to enjoy it. So that was when I decided for my next album, I was going to do all these pieces with music videos in mind. So some of them, the way they were filmed, I had in my head this idea before I was even writing the music. So, it was really awesome to see that a lot of them were well received, and to be able to feature some other people that I know doing, wonderful things like the weaving, my friend Ramona Chioni weaving a rug, as part of the video, where I was sort of weaving this in my mind as I was writing the music, and how that all came together was super special.
What are some of your musical influences? Are there any pianists or contemporaries, or even from classical, that you like to go back to and listen to?
Sometimes it's hard for me to analyze myself in that way. Like I said, for so long, I was just deeply embedded in the performance of the music of other great composers. And it's hard to say if there's one composer that influenced me the most. But, it's in the same way, I think, that growing up and hearing some of the traditional music that I heard, it sort of comes as an instinct where, someone else can maybe dissect that better than I can. But when I'm composing and coming up with these things, sometimes I have like a very logical reason for why I'm doing it. And sometimes I'm just, this sounds right. This feels right to go in this direction with the music. And I'm sure that's influenced by all the music that I've heard and studied throughout my life, So
who's your top Spotify person that you're listening to right now?
Oh, geez, you know what? I don't even look at that. My music is so, I think, just eclectic that I listen to. So when people ask me to like put my stuff on shuffle, I'm like, are you sure? Because it might be, you know.
Well, what's something random that we would find?
I don't know. It could be just like a Rachmaninoff concerto that comes up, and then it might be like a Kate Bush song. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it could be something by the Killers or a pop song that's trending right now. I listened to a lot of country growing up, so it really could be, it's all over the spectrum there. So I don't even know what could pop up.
Yeah. I told my wife that I was going to be interviewing you, and she played piano when she was younger for several years. She doesn't go back or play it now. And, you know, I said, can you play something? She goes, no, I can't. But when she was growing up, and what she introduced me to are a couple of artists who are Pianist, Tori Amos and Regina Spektor. So I'm curious if you've ever like listened to any of their music and seen how they perform on the piano.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, it's interesting. I was just talking to a friend recently about how so many songs from different genres have this like iconic piano introduction where if you listen and you hear those piano notes from the very beginning, you already know what song it is, and that's kind of like sticks in your mind. And so there's a connection for me with the piano, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it definitely sort of sets the scene for so much, and it's so like versatile that it can be in so many different genres. And some of the great artists that, you know, write their music on the piano and perform piano themselves, it's just interesting how different their music can be, and they all sort of start at this one instrument.
Yeah. Can you play two pianos at once?
I have.
Yeah.
You know, when I played like with some like rock music or other stuff, you know, it's playing two keyboards because one's the bass and then one's the piano, or you know, mixing it up like that. Yeah.
That is so cool. When you are, you know, on the keyboard and playing, you know, I think of that that Disney Pixar movie Soul, where the main character just kind of gets lost in his music, that sometimes he doesn't even know where he is, or kind of gets pushed into another universe. Does that feeling happen?
Yeah, it does in varying degrees, I think, especially when I'm diving deep into composing something or working on a piece that someone else has written that I'm performing. It sort of can become all-encompassing, and it's, I think, annoying for some people when I'm around them, because I'll just be sitting there and my fingers are going and tapping, and they're like, why are you tapping on the and I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Yeah.
You know, or the melodies are like running through my head over and over. And when I'm listening to certain music, you know, when I'm a certain state of mind, there is sort of this other space that you kind of go into that's sort of transcendent almost.
Do you find or have encountered many other Native artists or musicians on the piano in these settings that you've also played in, or these classical settings?
Yeah, you know, there's a real substantial group of Native performers and composers. I'm working on a project now that is like a piano book for beginners that has music by all indigenous composers from different tribes. There's 10 different composers that we're working with. And so it's been really exciting to have other pianists perform my music that are Native. Like Renata Yazi's a really wonderful musicologist and pianist, and she's played a lot of my music, and we've collaborated on a lot of things. But there's a lot of other composers that do classical style, but it's also different, you know? So it's really interesting to see.
What should people look out for you next?
You know, I'm doing this performance in April with the World Doctors Orchestra, and I'm working on some new music that I'm going to be releasing. So I try to, you know, keep everything updated on my social media. I'm sort of juggling a bunch of projects at once, so we'll see which comes to fruition first.
So do you go on tour and kind of like perform all over too?
Yeah, I travel and perform a lot. You know, I've got a few concerts lined up next month. I did like a official tour where I was going, you know, stop to stop a couple years ago. I don't have anything exactly like that. They're all sort of these one-off performances that I'm doing, but hoping to put something together. Yeah.
Do other Native kids come up to you and say, "Oh my gosh, I want to do what you do"?
Yeah, you know, I think that's been one of the most fulfilling things for me, is working with the younger generation, because when I was studying piano, I had a lot of really negative interactions surrounding music, being somebody that was Native, and not really having a ton of people to look up to in the classical world. You know, not that they weren't there, but they were not celebrated the way that they should have been at that time. And I was discouraged from pursuing a career in music because I had a teacher that just said, you know, you can't do it. It's not been done before. You know, Americans are too lazy. Natives are too lazy. You can't compete with the rest of the world. And I think I was 8 years old at that time, and it was so discouraging. So now having younger generation come up to me and say that they're inspired, it means so much to me to know that, it's sort of come full circle now. And for the younger generation to have a feeling of hope and that it's possible and that they're seeing it happen, because there's so much talent out there that, really needs to be celebrated. So.
Yeah. Don't you ever go back to that moment and think, I should have said, watch me?
Yes.
Right.
I think I at the time had like two options, which was just, to quit. But instead it upset me a lot. And it also made me like work harder, because I was like, now, I really want to show this person and the rest of the world what I can do and what we can do. So, I think this was the best outcome.
Right. Well, I hope situation. Whoever this person is has followed your work and has seen some of the amazing things that you've been doing. And it goes back to that moment and says, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Where can people find your work?
On my website, ConnorChee.com, it's got links to all of my Spotify, Apple Music, and, my social media, TikTok, Instagram.
And talk about this benefit that's coming up here in the Valley in early April.
Yeah, April 5th and 6th, April 5th in Scottsdale, April 6th in Mesa at the Mesa Arts Theater. It is I'm playing the Gershwin Piano Concerto in F with the World Doctors Orchestra, and it is a benefit concert. All the proceeds are going to the St. Vincent de Paul Phoenix Medical Clinic. So I'm really excited to be able to play with the orchestra. It's been a while since I've been able to play with orchestra, so I'm really looking forward to that. I love the piece, and it's even better that this is going for a good cause. And, it's a charity, so we're raising funds for something that's very, very important.
Awesome. All right. Well, Connor, thank you so much for stopping by and talking with me. And good luck on your future endeavors. And I can't wait to hear more of your work.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Here Before, Here Now. We'll check you next time.
This is Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.